Farm4Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm4Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm4Profit Podcast.
Well, listeners, welcome back to the Farm for Profit Podcast. This is Tanner.
This is Corey.
And this is David.
I feel like I needed to be way more dramatic. This is
It's going to be hard for me to be chipper today.
Why?
But we're going to do it because we are professionals.
What? Why can't you be chipper?
I don't know, because we're not going to make any money this year.
We're going to talk about why is farming awesome.
Yeah, all right.
But I don't understand. It's the middle of July and you're not happy?
Yeah. Still not happy.
Still
from
not
May 20 and my 24th.
24th?
24th.
Yep.
5 days of school left.
Can't hardly see.
Why are we recording today, guys?
Because it's wet out. It's
Yeah.
been wet for several weeks, but we got more. What do we get? 4 or 5 inches the other day.
Yes.
An inch the day before that. 6/10 yesterday. Several tornadoes, derechos, hail. Like, let's just mix it all up. Good
We
year to
haven't-
buy a farm that's wet, isn't it?
Good year to buy bottom ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are. What makes farmers or farming so great? We had that question that we asked you guys for, almost 3 months towards the end of 2023, first part of 2024,
Yeah.
until Dave and Corey changed the question up,
Which was a great move.
which was a great move, but we never gave you a summary of the answers. So we felt like we kind of owed you a little bit of a discussion. And what better time to check in on our newest farmer of the trio and find out if he thinks farming is so great. So, Dave, you know a lot about agriculture, but this is your first year actually farming.
Yeah.
Because you bought a farm, and then you bought some of the equipment to start farming with.
Yeah, like we had some of it because we actually had a farm, but it was cattle farm. So this is a row crop farm. So I always tell people my wife's the cattle, and now I'm the crops. So cattle and the crops. And so we had equipment and been in agriculture, but and even, of course, being on the podcast, guys, we talk about everything from agronomy to microbiologics to, and you have an understanding of it. But the one thing I'll comment to any egg salesperson out there is it's 180 degrees different doing it. There's just new questions that you'd never thought about. Like, yeah, I know agronomy, but I didn't really care what that pH meant as much as I do now. Right. And you had, you talk about yields, and guys would say, well, I got 220 bushel, and other guys would say, well, I got 190. Well, okay, yeah, they're both in there. Well, there's a big difference between 220 and 190, and did we break even, and where are we at? So even down to, I had to ask Corey, how fast do I pull that field cultivator? Because I've sold the heck out of field cultivators and finishers and et cetera, but now when you're doing it, there's just new questions that you'd never thought about. You never had to.
How many farming phone calls do you think you've had from Dave this spring?
I have only had a fraction. I think I've had a half a dozen.
Okay.
I've been leaning on Corey.
I was going to say, I think I had 20 the day that Dave was planting, which was fine because I was planting too. I mean, but it's been hilarious. Your field cultivator or finisher question. Yep. How deep do I pull this thing? Boy, it's in there a ways. Like, how do I'm just feathering out of the ground. Well, it's an old piece of equipment. You got to go get the space.
I thought you were going to call it a piece of junk.
No,
it's an old
piece of equipment.
equipment.
It doesn't have the stops in it for setting.
Yep.
You got to put the
hydraulic stops, cylinder stops
in.
Yep.
To kind of set it, and that's why you have thick ones and thin ones and different combinations of the two, yeah, it's just kind of fun.
But I didn't, we've talked about the hard pan, but how deep is the hard pan? And how smooth is it supposed to be? And where,
sounds like a personal question.
Yeah.
How deep can she go?
Is it 6 inches?
You
is it?
Did you say 6 inches?
10 inches?
And then you ask Corey one thing and you get an answer, and then I went and asked the guys at coffee and I got a different answer, and then I went and asked the guys at the co-op and I got a different answer.
Who was right though?
Right? Yeah.
No.
So pick your advisor and stick
probably
with
the
it.
biggest thing you've learned is you can do it any way and there's no right or wrong way, right?
And we're still making those decisions to where do we want to harvest this way? Do we want to do that? And now what do we do with replants?
Are you supposed to shut your vac off while you're
Yeah.
planting? Things like that. Is your swath width, the same
Yeah.
as it should be? Is it?
There's so many
They don't make
checkpoints, Tanner.
24-foot planters.
Yeah, exactly. And I had tested everything before we started planting and got it perfect, and made sure my checklist was in my head. But, man, one little wrong move, and it'll change everything.
Mm-hmm. We were taking advantage of some cold days early in the season to get some equipment ready that we don't usually have time to get ready because we plant a lot of cover crops and then we harvest some of it as cattle feed.
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting the rake ready and the mower ready and the chopper ready and getting a head start, like you said, trying to be as ahead of it as possible. Last week we backed the chopper out of the shed and blew a fuel line. We'd already gone through the thing. It was supposed to be ready to go. Now, it's not a major fix or anything, but it leads into discovering another and another. You're right. I feel like listeners here know that feeling of we can be fully prepared and things can still go awry. But the first segment that we had on our What Makes Farming So Great was just the pure enjoyment. Our Farm for Fun episodes, our pure enjoyment. First one was
what we were doing this year is farming for fun.
We're going to be. It's going to have to be fun.
Yep.
Otherwise, you aren't going to want to do it. Jackson said, watching the tractors rolling in the field with the smoke, filling up with seeds all the way through corn and bean harvest, blowing smoke, getting her done, letting her eat.
I got to preface this with, this was December 21st. We recorded it at the end of November.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson, Just a Jackson thing had just hit the scene maybe a couple weeks before that. Had a couple viral videos. But now he's got TV specials on NBC and frickin' John Deere and Case and everybody got him, all over the place. Like, I think he's on contract.
Yeah.
And the kid's, 8 years old?
You're probably 9 now.
9? I mean, what a personality. I mean, what a kid.
Dave, what was that feeling? Running that soil finisher through the field and then planting the crop. What did it feel like?
Oh, it's so cool to it's so cool is the word, to go with it and have a plan come together, and I've always been about planning to build something and seeing the whole plan come together. So being able to go and do it and watch it change, that's like even framing a house. You get to watch it come together. Well, I got to watch, I asked even, why does the soil turn blacker or more black? It's the moisture coming to the top, right? Well, as you finish, just like mowing your yard, you have a sense of satisfaction when you're complete and all the rows are straight and you see the crisscross hatch of your yard. It's just on a bigger scale. A lot bigger scales. So, when it was a different feeling, though, when you bury, about $10,000 under the dirt. I went home and told my wife that, and I'm like, I think we just buried $10,000 underground. I hope this works.
Yep.
And it wasn't a jar in the front yard.
No.
Yeah, you can't go dig it back up.
Yeah. And, homeowners, they think they're, like, man, I just spent $2,000 in grass seed. Okay, well, yeah, it's just scale, though.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you bought, it was 70-ish acres, right
just
down
short
from your
80.
house.
Yep.
And it was pretty good price, really. I mean, really good price. You bought it from another auctioneer. It was an online auction. Everything was fair. And you came to me one day and was like, how much money am I going to make? And the calculation I did was, well, how much money are you going to have to kick in to supplement it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you weren't farming full time. You are doing your auctioneer and realty business.
Correct.
Luckily, you have that to kick in. But you were always buy land. Don't wait to buy land. Buy land and wait.
Yes.
Beating that drum, and then a lot of us farmers are going, well, it doesn't cash flow.
Doesn't pay.
Doesn't really ever cash flow, but eventually it will because land should appreciate.
Yeah, and every young guy ever has come to me and asked, well, how can I afford this? And I am living proof that you better have a supplement.
Dirty things.
You better have a supplement income of some sort to make that work, or you better have had family in the business.
Yep, that Grant on Twitter, what's his last name?
Wise.
He had a good one the other day. He said, some of the most wealthy farmers that he knows farms 500 acres and has a job in town or another business or something like that, because they can sit there and do that kind of stuff. They can throw, they call it throwing good money at bad bad, but eventually it turns into good.
Well, and we're sitting here on a wet day. It just rained, 4 inches? At least a third of my field is underwater. I learned that as well. So I called the crop insurance person, and I said, hey, I'm going to do replants, because they sent me an email and said you're supposed to tell them. And they said, well, you don't have enough acres. You have to have at least 20% of your field damaged to do replants before we pay it. Well, I don't remember that when I signed up for crop insurance,
they don't tell you that.
but sure enough, you got to have 20%. Well, there wasn't 20% when I sent her that email, but I bet there is today. So
Right.
even though we sit here and there's 20% plus of my field underwater, and like surely yours is too, when I'm looking at it, you're looking at it is this is my only bread and butter. I'm thinking I was going to lose money anyway. Now I just maybe lost more.
Right.
So it's I'm still nervous about it, but I had planned on losing money.
Right.
I had planned on, all my goal was just to keep this thing afloat until hopefully it appreciates enough. I pay it off, and then I have generational wealth that maybe somebody else can build to it, or something to borrow against, and or I get to have fun in the meantime. I always see people with houses, young guys, and they're like, well, should I build a brand new big house, or should I just buy this little one and fix it up? I've always been in the mentality, borrow the money, enjoy it, because I'm going to pay for this thing for 30 years, so I might as well enjoy it. I might as well have granite countertops while I'm paying for those granite countertops, rather than wait till I'm 75, and now I can afford the hot tub, and now I don't look good in the hot tub. Well, I never did anyway, but yeah.
I do see it. I see it both ways. I mean, you could go to Tanner's, I'm going to save myself to prosperity, banker mentality, and I see people like that, and I get it. Like, they probably have a lot in their bank account. But like, are they happy? And then, my grandparents, they were fine, and they built a house when they were 60-some, and it was too late to enjoy,
Correct.
And now they got this huge house that they got to clean, and they just complain about it. It's like
when you're older. So I just soon do it when the kids will enjoy it, when there's graduation parties, when we have the space, etc. Well, same thing with the farm. I know it's not going to make money now.
Right.
I'm hoping that it becomes my annuity when I retire. But in the meantime, I'm geeking out on the tech. I always have been. And so what does everybody ask you? They want to come to your house and drive your tractor?
Right.
They all want to do that cool part. Well, I never got to drive anybody else's tractor because they're doing that. You get the grunt work, right? Well, buy your own farming, do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah,
sure. Now I get to drive the tractor.
You bought the farm before you closed. You had a 12-row planter bought.
Yep,
for
I
70
did.
acres. and you're already sending me every planter upgrade kit on Facebook Marketplace.
Yes.
All that.
From the John Deere, all the John
I'm
Deere
like,
puck
calm down, Dave. You need to learn how to plant with markers first.
And that advice came to, I don't know if you heard that story, Tanner, but as my width was off, just because I pressed one wrong button on the GPS, you can press accept or no, change the width. Apparently, I pressed the wrong button. Thought I did. It showed that my planter was there. And if you look at my planter width, it was 30 feet. But the working width was wrong.
Yeah, 24 foot.
And so
field finisher
I
was.
Get out there and I set my planter down. I'm looking. And I'm like, man, I'm going to hit that power pole. But Corey said, I don't care how good you think your GPS is, put that damn marker down.
Yeah.
So I put my marker down, and I start going, and immediately my tractor turns to the left 3 feet. And I'm like, no, stop. I'm like, damn it. I wanted straight rows. Now I'm off 3 feet. I got this jog of 3 feet over. So I get out. I'm looking. I'm like, I'm going to hit that power pole. There's no way this is right. I set all this up yesterday. I reviewed it with Corey, got my A-B curve. Like, it's all in there. So I go back in the computer. I make sure it's right. I go through it. Everything's right, except my working width. But I'm not noticing that. And so I went another 10 feet.
And you back over again.
And everybody who's listening who runs a John Deere GPS system, there's a button that says 1 inch over.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't understand because I hadn't used it enough what shift track did. Shift track to where you're sitting. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'm 3 foot off. So I'm out there with a tape measure. I'm 3 foot off. So I'm pressing the 1 inch button, ding, 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 ding,
30 times,
until I get it over far enough. Finally, I got it straight. I'm like, all right, now I'm straight. So I moved it over 1 inch at a time all the way over. Well, that was only one A-B track. I get on the next one. Son of a buck. I'm off 3 feet. And so finally, after about 3 times of doing that, I said, screw it. let's just follow the outside. And I was glad that I did a little homework. So Corey let me ride in the planter with him, and I watched as he went around. He didn't even have his AB curve set yet. So he set them as we were going, but he visualized it and used his marker. I'm like, well, screw it. I can do the same thing. I've already been out here for an hour and a half screwing around.
It's a good thing you got a 12-row planter because you'd already been done.
Yeah. So I finally say, screw it, just use the marker, and I do the outside rows of the marker. Screw it, I'll wait till I get my perfectly straight rows. I've been doing this when I was, cultivating on it and finishing, and it worked just fine. So I don't know what the issue is. And after 2 rows, 2 rounds of being off on that, all right, Corey, you're getting a call. What the heck over? This cannot be right. Because I literally am out there with a tape measure making sure it's 30 inches because Corey's going to chew my ass of why.
He's going through his checklist of
like
stuff.
Everything.
When he calls me, he's like, I don't know what it could be. And I'm like, I don't know either. I'm like, what's that little number say in the top right corner underneath?
And I'm like, 24 foot. He's like, there it is.
I think I heard F. From like 13 miles away, like I was going through the field. I'm like, there it is.
So to kind of roll this right into the answers. So Josie Wendell, one-legged mama, said, for the love of the game, it doesn't matter if you are winning or losing this year. You will go right back out and plant again next spring. It's in your blood. So that's what it is. But the next category is top-tier people. Corey, I think you were Dave's top-tier person that day when he was able to call you. But John Kalshuk or John Smith, because we learned that's
John Smith.
John Smith. It's the people. There are so many awesome people to talk to and learn from. He's proud to be a farmer. We are quality people.
I love John's stuff.
I'm trying to think if you would have called me if I would have gotten it any sooner. And I don't think there's any way I would have said, what's the number in the top? If I was
Which
looking
I had
at
a monitor in my, and like I'm looking at stuff,
I was looking
and I'm
at
like, because he was saying how far he was off, and I'm like, that's more than a
even
nudge.
being able to explain, because I'd actually bought the GPS before I started row cropping. And even the John Deere guy looked at me and was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm mowing hay, spreading manure. And so I set up my implements because I knew someday I was going to do it. And I wanted to learn how to use the GPS before that, because there's more to than just jumping in the tractor and saying, go. My dad's asked me 3 times, and he keeps calling it a seeder. I'm like, Dad, it's a planter. He's like, well, the seeder. You put the
comes
seeder
from Montana.
Okay, well, so he's like, hey, on that seeder, he's like, you want me to just go out and seed that? I'm like, Dad, you don't have he doesn't. He won't know. So I've like, there's computers in there. You won't know. Just wait until I'm there. I want to do it anyway. But
Dave just wanted to do it.
Yeah.
No, computers. Yeah. Computers, Dad. You don't like those computers.
Yeah.
No.
So there's more to it. Even so you talk about problem solving. So we think of any mechanic. Well, it's got a sound. So this is Corey. He's been my mechanic. And it's, hey, this is wrong. What did I do wrong? Let me give you another example. So now seed's up. So that's pretty cool when the seed comes up. Hey, my $10,000 came out of the freaking ground. Son of a buck. So my kid, I had him plant 1 seed just in a cup because he wanted to plant as well. So he's got 1. I think his corn's taller than mine. Probably. So it's in the house, and it's about 9 inches tall right now. And he goes and rubs the leaves, and my wife's like, quit touching the doggone plant. But anyways, he did that, and he was so happy when the thing came out of the ground. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm happy times how many thousands of seeds per acre, right? So it came up. And then,
so now you're out there rubbing the leaves of all of your heads?
I'm not, but I thought about naming everyone, right? So we get out there, and there is a full planter width that just missed. And I'm thinking, how in the hell do I have an entire planter width that missed? It's not 1 row that was wrong. So I go back and look at my map. Well, everywhere that it said that it planted. Well, if that's the case, what triggers that? Well, my detent button, okay? Yeah. Well, my detent button does. So if the detent button was down and it triggered the map, that means my planter was down. If my planter was down, it's a ground driven. So I'm trying to problem solve here. That means the chain is moving. If the chain's moving, it's planting. So what the hell else is wrong? So again, I call Mr. Expert here, and he's like, do you think your vacuum might have been off? Well, there was one time I thought I hit the wrong button, the detent button. You know why John Deere has those covers over the hydraulic deal? Yeah. I know now. Mm-hmm. I can tell you why.
Shut his vac off.
Well, it was right there. I was like, oh, did I hit the wrong button? The vac was shut off for that half a pass. So I got a half a pass that's a full width. Now we can replant it. But just problem solving, like what could it have been? I worked with 2 or 3 other guys and asked them, how could it not have planted? Corey was the only one that figured it out.
Over the phone again. There was a method to my madness.
Yeah,
of
it's all
trying to
shit
help,
Corey's already done before.
trying to help you.
yeah.
Because, I mean, he immediately bought the farm. Obviously, he was talking to me before that, buying all this equipment. Already had the tractor, all that, bought a soil finisher. I spent, 2 or 3 days up with you, just going through the planter, and then you asking all the questions of, like, how do we set a gauge wheel? How deep do we want to plant? And I had my set and seed, and I brought up and all that, and got your seed. And then I was there the day before you planted. We went out and planted. I brought some old seed. We planted in the pasture.
In the pasture,
Yeah.
And we found something else. We realized my tractor didn't have radar.
Yep.
So
didn't
that
have radar
we
on it.
couldn't set the speed on the monitor for the population count. So even when you think you got everything figured out, the morning I planted, I ran to the John Deere store to get something. And then I love it. We called the GPS guy and said, is there any way to tie the GPS into the planter monitor? Nope, can't be done. I literally have the text. No, can't be done. Corey
I'm sending him forums like, yes, you can.
He found a forum somewhere. The guy's like, yeah, it's this cable. Here, go to John Deere and buy it.
Yep.
Sure enough, I called John Deere. They got it. I went and got it. Works perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a workaround for him. I put in a manual speed and said, Dave, just go 5 miles an
Just
hour.
stay there.
And then at least it'll let you know that it's planting right. But he was not. I would have just kept with that. And he was like, nope, I'm going to go get it and make it right.
Yep.
But my whole method to that was, like the mama bird, like, I had you in the nest, and then you got kicked out. Like, I was not going to be there the day you planted.
Yeah,
because
correct.
I was going to be in the field. But you're a smart guy. I gave you all the tools that you needed to figure it out. I have a phone. Like, we can talk. The best education for you is to go out and make the mistakes because you will never do it again.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And, you probably learned it as you were a kid, as you learned from your parents. You saw a screw up. You saw something. Well, why'd that happen or whatever. I have little to no experience doing the row crop deal other than, I've sat in combines with people. Yeah, I've sat in tractors with people while they're planting. But unless you ask the question and know the process to what's going on, you don't know. You just don't even know what you don't know. And that is so true.
A lot of farm kids maybe don't get that. They might have been doing the manure spreading or the tillage, and they know how to run the GPS, maybe, if they had GPS.
Yeah.
There's not a lot that got to run the planter because that was Dad's or Grandpa's job or whatever because, by God, no one wanted to screw that up, right?
Yeah.
And so for the kids that got to, that's awesome. That's great. I never really did. I mean, I was always the one in the field cultivator or whatever. So I didn't learn how to plant on the farm. I might have rode with Dad and kind of knew what was going on, but I never ran it.
Well, and
I learned it on my job.
I could have shut my mouth and just like, screwed up there and shove it under the rug. But I really do want to learn from the mistakes. So I've been talking and very verbal with everybody that this is, well, how do you do this? Well, how do you do that? Even to the point where there's a million people on TikTok that'll tell you how to farm. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
So asking questions there, but you didn't learn that in college. See, I didn't go to college for it.
No,
you did.
You don't learn it in college.
But all these folks go to college. Now they might learn that this soil does this or this does that, but they're not telling them that the shift tract tells them to go over. Maybe in AST.
Maybe in AST.
Maybe in AST.
Technology, maybe.
But other than that.
That was day one of AST.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
they
there's
don't tell you
craziness to all of it.
I mean,
and
this was the first year I've ever planted corn, and it was on my in-laws' operation, and I just covered lunches for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, I never got the opportunity as a kid either. I planted a bunch of beans, but corn was pretty sacred.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was when I worked at Pioneer. It's actually when I was an intern working for Pioneer, a Pat intern, and then I was helping guys plant their plots. And a couple guys were just like, there's just 7,000 out there, John Deere 7,000 out there, just go plant it. Because they were busy planting, and I learned it myself. And I remember one time I didn't engage one of the rows manually after I got done dumping the box, and I planted. And I'm like, why is there a bunch of extra seed in that one? And I had to figure it out myself.
Right.
All right, now I got to go disengage all the others and go plant that one row, so I don't screw up, Pioneer's their whole hybrid selection process, type of deal.
And the one thing that's really crazy is how many different decisions you have to make. And so I like making decisions. My entire job being the owner and boss at the real estate firm is everybody comes to ask me what's the final decision. So now you are the final decision maker here. I can't imagine like working with your dad, like, well, maybe I should ask Dad. Should I? I'm the boss. I just make whatever decision I want. But there are so many now, and we know this from the podcast guys. How many products have we had on the show that can make you 5 bushel an acre, right? Well, which one?
Two bushel.
Two bushel. Which one do you pick?
We should be growing 1,000 bushel corn.
Which one do you pick? And so
The
now
ones
it's
that advertise with Farm for Profit.
Right.
Those are the ones you pick.
Yep.
I remember Tony Reed's TikTok where he rants on, well, no-till doesn't work for me, but it might for you. I'm not bashing it. I'm just telling you, I know my farm. I think that holds very true.
Oh, yeah.
I know my farm. So when I was even asking, should I buy a cultivator or should I buy a soil finisher? Well, which one should I do? You know, so I think you have to know what you have, because my sandy soil right now that I love all this rain. I have 0 puddles. I have the best hay crop I've ever had on the sandy soil. But down here on my mucky gumbo bottom soil, I don't like the rain. Mm-hmm. Completely different operation, and you want 2 different things.
And that's why I always pull up Google Earth. You know, you're always looking at CSR2 and, you know, how much it's going to, you know, how much CEC it's got, and looking at soil samples and all that. That's all good and great. But, like, I like to go back and look at wet years and dry years on Google Earth Pro. And then I circle them and go, okay, if it's 2010, I could potentially, which is a wet year for us around here, I could potentially lose 16 acres out of this 70.
Yep.
Like, if that happens, then what? Right? Like, that's my worst case scenario or whatever for wet. You're looking at it now.
Yep.
Now you know, okay, yeah, the CSR says I should pay $15,000 an acre for this ground. But I look at that, and it's like, it's got a lot of risk. There's a lot more risk.
The funny thing about this farm, I did less research on the farm I bought than the ones I sell. I honestly did. My wife's like, well, don't you have a soil map? I'm like, no.
No, because you did the ultimate farmer thing, and you just did emotionally
bought.
Yeah, and so 3 things learned just in the buying process. 1, this farm was for sale before it went to auction.
Yep.
I drove by it, I don't know, 100 times.
Oh, it was for sale forever.
It was for sale for like 6 months.
Yep.
It never even dawned on me. I'm like, he's got that for sale. I should buy it, whatever. The day I drove by and he had an auction sign, I said, oh, crap, they're going to sell it. So I preach this message anyway at my auction firm. Auctions are time defiant.
Create urgency.
They create urgency. The next call I made was to the bank.
Apparently, it only created urgency with you.
With me, yes. So
you were the only.
But I knew that it was going to take a while to get that financing. Here's the second thing learned. It takes a long time to go through the whole financing process. By the time I talked to the guy, he's like, okay, well, I need your wife's tax returns and your tax returns and this and that. And then we had to get qualified. And I tried for the young farmer deal, starting farmer. That's a hell of a process.
We
Tell
should
you
have
what.
a full show on that.
Mercy. There's a whole nother show there. But so even as an auctioneer on the other side, you say you don't know until you do it. Well, I always gave about 60 days worth of advertising. Well, is that enough to get financed? I didn't have the permission to buy it before I bought the farm.
Oh, you bad boy.
I did not have the loan approval, but I knew I'd get it. I knew I'd have it anyway. But I didn't have it from that specific lender before I bought the farm. I still pulled the trigger. The other thing is, all those extra fees, so let's call it a buyer's premium. There was extra fees on this. They did fall fertilizer on this one and fall tillage.
That's not a fee. That's money to you.
Correct,
that
money
you would
to
have
me.
spent anyway.
But it didn't change my mind of how much I would give. Like I had a price in mind that here's my top dollar. I wasn't figuring in the extra, even though I had to write a check for another $14,000 after the deal.
Right.
I just said we're bidding on it, and here's how we're bidding on it. So there is emotion in auctions, 110%, and especially when it's your neighbor farm. This is the closest farm that's ever come up to sell to my house, and that's why I decided to pull the trigger.
That's probably something all of our listeners can associate with, whether it's a tractor that they drive by and it's had a for sale sign in the front yard the entire time, and then finally goes on auction. And I was been seeing it there. I know whose it is. But when you're talking about how you didn't give up on connecting your monitor, your GPS to your planter monitor, we did create a category here for our answers of what makes farming so great. It's the drive to go forward. You always to have a drive for more. Emily Schmidt with Sukup said they are natural innovators and problem solvers. Farmers are the epitome of an innovator. They figure out how to make things work. When you meet them and get to know them, you will see they have a common bond in farming. It's easy to push forward. And both of you just epitomized exactly what she said there. We also see here that Brandon Honeycutt from our Husker Harvest Days interview said, everybody has the same goals. They might do it differently, just like you were talking about Tony Reed's rant. You can see they do something differently. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. Learn from it. There's always something to learn. So, yeah, you're doing a good job of filing this stuff away mentally in your first year. Just wait until you harvest the crop and start hearing about everybody else's yields and the questions you're going to have.
Oh, yeah.
God, he had the emotion going before he even closed on it. When we got back from Commodity Classic, it was warm out in March, and people were doing a little bit of field work. And you're like, oh, I got to do something. I got to get out there and do something. I don't even have a tool bought yet. I got to buy something. Like, no, you don't, Dave. You don't have to go do that because the neighbor's doing it.
See, and then I didn't feel as much like I was behind. So I'm busy with my normal job, so I'm just trying to fit this in there. Like, my wife's like, how are you going to do this? Like, we've been trying to declutter our life, not add more to it, right? But I see guys do it. Let's take 2 weeks, whatever, and plant, and 2 weeks and harvest, and let co-op do the stuff in the middle and spray, etc. Well, my thought was the same. Could we do that? Second, it takes a lot of money. I don't care who you are. If there's like no message that gets to anybody that wants to buy a farm, it's a lot of money to start. Then it's a lot of money put in fertilizer. Then it's a lot of money put into equipment. And I'm small time, but just the second I think I'm small time, I drove by some other farmers that I know are very established with big fields, and they're out there with like a 6-row 7,000 John Deere planter, and I'm thinking, well, mine's bigger and newer than that. I'm like, well, geez, I can't believe they're still doing it. But their margin is probably way better than mine by 100.
That's just because you value new and technology, and like you're already talking about high speed and all that.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you need that? Like, you'll get done in half a day anyway.
Yeah, correct.
But you like that, and you geek out on it. And honestly, the whole reason you bought this is because you're trying to preach do what you preach.
Yeah, correct.
And your education that you're getting through this, even though that costs you money, is the cheapest education you can possibly get, because it is helping you understand agriculture. I mean, you knew a little bit about everything in ag because you had to as an auctioneer, but now your depth of knowledge is so much deeper than a lot of competitors, I would say. Mm-hmm. Just in putting a crop in.
Well, and it's like never stop learning, just like that last one said. Yep. I mean, never. And luckily, I asked the questions, but I'm more of an extrovert. Most farmers are introverts. They don't want to show their mistakes. They don't want to tell anybody, which I've been very open to be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here on this.
Well, it's ultra competitive.
Yeah. But it's made me a lot of friendships, though, by saying that, because if you say, I don't think I know what I'm doing, how do I do this? Now, luckily, I've had you the whole time, but I've had 4 or 5 other people that have told me. But, then we get into marketing grain. You talked about timeline and being in a rush. Well, then I talk with the grain marketer guy, and he's like, I think you missed the window. I'm like, well, crap. Here I thought I was ahead of everything, and now I think I'm behind everything, and I missed the window to.
You missed the window before the farm was bought.
Yeah.
I mean,
you didn't even know you missed the window, and you missed the window.
Yeah.
So have you sold anything?
No.
So as of May 24th, you are 0%
I was
sold.
on him a week or two ago. I said, we got a rally here. We're not going to have much, it doesn't seem like, so you should hop on it. You put some targets in.
I put some targets in.
Yeah.
So I put some targets, and we haven't hit them. With all this rain, though, tell you what.
Dave's the one that caused the market to go
That's
back
called backyarditis, Dave. It's wet here, and it's wet other places, but rain makes grain, according to Chicago. So this will not, if this hurts, which... Okay, this is more of a typical Iowa spring, I would say, than the last 4 years we've had.
Oh, okay.
We do better in a drought, at least the northern half of Iowa. And because we might have some spots that burn up, but the potholes just puke out corn because there's so much nutrients there from all these years of fertilizer and all that. It's these years, you have 250 bushel corn out there, but then you come to 10% of that field is zero. Or 20% of that field is zero.
Yep.
And then another 10 or 20% was affected by that rain. And how much nitrogen have we lost because we sat saturated for 5 weeks now?
Yeah.
Okay, all of a sudden Iowa has 165 bushel corn or 70. That won't be realized until the combines roll.
I see.
Because rain makes grain, according to Luke Bryan and Chicago Board.
Well, if we go back to what makes farming great, back in October we interviewed Tony Reed and Nick McCormick. Illinois Acres, right? And Tony said, it's one big family. You can relate in so many areas, topics, etc. It's easy to talk to one another. So we're talking about marketing grain. I make a TikTok that says, what the heck do you do here? And old Buck Me from Nebraska reaches out to me, calls me, says, hey, I got the best grain marketer. I'm just telling you, I've had a lot of success with him. You should call him. And I'm like, well, appreciate that. And Buck Me, we don't talk every day. He reached out because he saw the video. He's like, I love watching your enthusiasm on the start here. I want you to be successful. Call me anytime. Anytime. So went from not having his phone number, but knowing him socially and met a couple of times
he
too.
He was in your shop with pasties on, so
he was connected a little bit.
Yeah,
but not to where we talked every day.
Right.
And to now, so it is. Tony Reed's right when he says you can relate in so many areas. And
so without throwing anyone under the bus, how many people do you think has reached out to you when they heard that you bought a farm, that they wanted to custom farm it, rent it, do something for you?
Probably about 6. Yeah, I had about 6 people that they assumed, because everybody's like, oh, you're actually farming it?
Yeah.
Like everybody thought that I just bought it because it was investment. Now, starting farmer loan, fun fact.
Did you count Corey in that?
I didn't reach out. He reached out to me.
Okay.
So probably 7.
Yeah, we did that on math on the front end. What if I just had Corey rent it before we bought it?
Yeah.
Yep. Versus, so what's
I
the
was
rental?
joking about the seed deal that he got and the custom harvest bill he's going to get. I was giving shit.
I'm not going to be harvesting it. He's going to do silage.
Now I had another neighbor ask,
Yeah.
there's cattle right next to me, asked, can we do silage?
Yeah.
So it's tough to do this because I really want to know what the yield is. But do you have a crop adjuster come out,
You have to.
check what the yield is, and then sell it for silage? For me, that's great because I don't have a combine. I don't pay custom harvest. Might save Corey some time. It's probably less of a pain in the butt for him.
Yeah, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Hey,
you don't get rich on custom farming.
And then I don't have to haul it, and I have nowhere to store it. So for me, it's crazy win-win, tell you the truth. Yep. It depends on what he wants to give me in price.
So it's a calculation, right? You're selling the grain, but they're taking 100% of 99% of the plant.
That's right.
So that is nutrients that are going back. So then you have to count for that
to put back on.
Yep. Now, if you're going to stay corn on corn, that's an amazing thing.
That's a huge benefit.
Because now you're not having to fight the carbon and nitrogen ratio, putting all that stover back in. But you do need to put that back into the soil.
Yeah. So then it's all stuff that's even over my head there, but we'll get there. So, but financially, it looks actually positive, and this just happened that a neighbor saw that I had it, and so it was good to say that. However, we just went out to eat, guys, and I got asked over there, well, I heard you bought another farm. So they had heard through the grapevine that I bought 2 or 3 now.
Now the rumors are going.
So now we got rumors already.
You said just one? You should have said just one?
BTO status on its way.
Yeah.
He was wondering where my other farm was, and I was like, nope, I don't think I had that kind of bankroll.
Yet.
Not yet, anyway.
Yet. Well, that was good. I had men's group this morning. We were studying John chapter 4, and it was again talking about, like you said, the father shows the son, and how, Corey, you learned not everything from your dad, and we've got a lot of other operators that, for example, don't share everything with their children or even their hired hands, just how much better your operation can run if you aren't afraid to share what you know, because there's a lot of, in the corporate world, job protection. People don't want to tell you how they do it or what they do it because they fear that you're going to come in and do it better, and now they don't have a job anymore.
Well, that's why we started What's Working in Ag. Hey, Corey, what's working for you? And I've been doing that literally at the coffee shop. But what works here, guys? Well, what works there? Well, you got that gumbo soil. You can't do that. You can do this.
Yeah, Millennial Farmer says that he loves raising his kids on the farm. It's the most rewarding thing that he can do, having them watch the cycle life through crops and livestock and working hard. So I'd have a feeling that not only does he have a YouTube platform that kind of curates some of the processes for his kids, but it sounds like he's got a real focus on helping them get to see what's going on. I want to know, Dave, what your advice is to guys if they're done planting. Of course, most of us got to pull our planters back out of the shed to replant. But how soon should you clean your planter out after you finish planting?
Very soon.
If you park it outside.
If you park it outside, yes.
Why? What happened, Dave?
No, I left a little bit of the seed in my planter boxes because I didn't know
Because you knew you were going to replant.
if we were going back or not, but it had to sit outside because I don't have a big enough shop. So I couldn't quite get it in there with
It's big enough.
with where everything else was.
Just just had other projects in there.
Had other projects going. So I thought, well, I'll vacuum it out. Well, I did eventually and went to vacuum it out and take the plates out and everything that the John Deere book said because I read through the entire thing. And sure enough, there's already stuff sprouting in the...
That's a pretty good germinating seed.
Right.
Good germ.
Yeah.
I will say he did read the whole manual and even taught me a few things. Like, you know, this is... Oh, I did not know that. Like
how the safety chain goes on the drawbar. And
yeah. Like, that's good. More people need to do that.
It was actually very informational. I just forced myself to read through it. There's so much extra in there, though, because John Deere makes the book for 9 different models.
Right.
Oh.
So it's like, if you're finger pickup, well, I'm not finger pickup. Okay, that whole section.
Yeah, he kept sending me, which one do I plant? Which sprockets?
Well,
I'm like, that's not your
That's
planter.
not your planter.
Yeah.
Or cotton or peanuts or, you know, I mean, they had all kinds of different plates. Well, I skip. So really that book looks like it's 1.5 inches thick. It's really only a third of that. Mm-hmm. It's really only a third that you read. The rest is just redundancy.
I'm just glad that you have that drive to do it, because if you were like a timid person, but you wanted to farm, I don't know.
How would you ever do it?
I don't know. I had an instructor. I took some classes at DMAC when I was in high school. I don't know what you call that, AP or additional, whatever. And I took diesel mechanics. And I still remember what that guy said. He said, if you ever get the opportunity to drive something that you've never drove, an excavator, forklift, monster truck, whatever, get in it and do it and figure it out, because you'll never have that opportunity again. Like, you can't screw that much up. You know, they've kind of safety all this stuff up. He's like, get in it and just do it, because that's the best way to learn.
Well, and I like to take everything that anything that I have, so software for the auction company, most of those softwares can do so much more than the salesman ever told you, but you have to dig into it. You have to figure out what can it do or what can it not. Most of the people just like, oh, here's the one thing they sold us on, but really there's like 10 other things that, like Excel spreadsheets. There are a million formulas. You could be very basic at Excel, or, well, same with John Deere tractors. I figured out that this doesn't just go forward and backwards. We could do this. We could do that. But how do we do it? So how do we do it? But you have to ask yourself the question and then find the answer.
No, that's cameras. It's going to have to cool down for a bit.
Oh, is that what it is? Is it a heating issue?
Maybe we need like a little fan on it.
Ooh, there you go. Yeah, so the last category that we had for what makes farming so great is pride in lifestyle, quality of life. We had 2 answers that I saved for this one. Natalie from Discover Ag, she gave the first answer, and then Annalise Wagner, who started her own podcast. It seems like we have some folks on our podcast and sparks their interest to do another podcast.
They just see how successful we are.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Natalie said it's lifestyle that it provides. Farming, ranching is so integrated in lifestyle. The pros outweigh the cons. The best people are in the farming industry. And Annalise said it's more than just a job. I get to work, be outside, have kids that grow up on the farm. So she kind of tied the family one and the lifestyle one together. So, Dave, as you're going through your first growing season, do you feel like our guests had answered pretty clearly here? We had pure enjoyment, top-tier people, pride of lifestyle, connection to family, and the drive to always do more.
100%. I copied Corey and put an American flag on my planter with pride. And so even though I got a small little engine that could, I had 3 people that knew I bought that farm that drove by on the interstate that day and sent me text messages like, love the flag on your planter. I know this is you kicking butt.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, wow.
Next year you got to get a big one.
That was crazy.
And then one of those wacky waving inflatable flailing arm tube man.
Say that
You seen
again.
that guy on TikTok?
I have.
Wacky waving inflatable flailing arm tube man.
Yeah.
The old family portion, though, so my kids, there are a difference in kids. I really thought, man, they'll be out there, they'll be wanting to ride with, they'll be whatever, and they, whatever. Dad,
Yeah, but that's a kid thing.
Dad's
Like,
planting. Okay, well, whatever. Now my wife, it was kind of cool to like, hey, bring me some food. You guys are all. She's like, really.
I'm hungry
I'm
out
like,
here.
man, I've been out here all day.
10 a.m.
I'm like half a mile away. Bring me some food. So she's like, oh well, here's your first, whatever. And so yeah.
The old full field service there.
Yeah.
Right next to the interstate.
Now, you said you got the little engine that could. You had to beef up the horsepower on your tractor, too.
I
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Yeah. Steinbauer, one of our great partners, they helped me out with a kit on that. One of their kits, even for my
module.
Yeah. And it took a little. I installed it myself. It took a little to do that. They have some YouTube videos to do that,
Which is not hard. It's just
it's not hard, but the hard part is that the tractors are so. Mine's a compact utility.
Yep.
Okay, 6105R. Well, it's so compact. You got to take about 5 things off to get to that connector that's plug and play. So by the time I figured it out of where it was and then how to attach it to something that isn't hot.
Yeah.
Well, there's a muffler. There's an exhaust. There's a something. Okay, right here.
Yeah.
I ended up making a custom bracket for it, which worked perfect.
That sounds like something Dave would do.
But
I will say that Dave has these custom brackets on the back of his planter, which is very clean for like connecting all the electronics. And we have never done that. I mean, like our tractors are held together by zip ties.
Yep.
You know, it feels like.
Well, I called you the other day, and I'm like, the guy came and I got a modem. So I didn't have a modem to start with. If you're going to get the GPS, you got to have the modem if you're going to connect to John Deere Ops. Because I was using the USB, thinking I could save a little bit. Screw it. Give me the $800 modem. We'll call it a deal. Well, I did, and the John Deere guy come out when I wasn't there, and I come back, and there's a wire here and there and up overhead. And I'm like, who the heck ran this jankiness? I want it all clean and professional. And I called Corey. I was like, is this normal? He's like, it's just farmer normal.
It is. I mean, it is funny. I mean, you're like, this is dumb. This is an expensive thing. This should be like, I should have a clean thing that keeps us up out of the hitch, doesn't get wires pinched.
Yes.
And then we've got $300,000 tractors, $200,000 planter. You know, do the planter upgrade
Dangled
kit
with
and
a
all
bungee
that.
cord.
And then there's just 300 zip ties that hold it all together.
It drives me. I just like clean. You know, back in high school, I told this to Corey. We used to make a friend of mine. We all had speaker systems. It was all, you got its subwoofers, right? And he was all about the sound, and you had to have 3.62 cubic feet for Rockford Fosgate 12-inch. You know, he knew it exactly. So I'd build the box, but I'd carpet them, and I would lift them off and set backs and put neon underneath them, and I'd make it look badass. He'd make it sound badass. I'd make it look badass. Yep. Well, now I have a 6-figure tractor, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, we didn't build a cheap-ass system here. Let's not make this cheapy.
Yeah.
Let's make it look right and good. And I was sure that John Deere would have some kind of bracket. No.
But I had to tell Dave, I was like, you do realize, like, everything's plug and play now.
It wasn't.
And all plumbed in. I mean, we, for years, was taking an ag leader, you know, steering system out of this tractor and put it into the next, and you just have miles of cords just laying there because it had to go to the next tractor.
Yep.
There was no way
different hookups.
Yeah.
Well, you know the TikTok that came out about a year ago? Let me see your planning setup. And then, you know, some people would have an egg leader monitor, and then they'd have a Fendt monitor. They'd have a
climate lab,
whatever
tablet,
whatever they'd have, and then their row shutoffs, or maybe they have something else for down pressure. Maybe they had something else for fertilizer. Some of them guys looked like, you know, a space shuttle here, and I'm looking at mine. I have a different appreciation, like, well, what was that monitor for? What was that monitor for? Well, wait a minute. I went back and I looked at a bunch of them, thinking, well, how different is it on
Did you find any of the ones with the guys brought like the 36-inch TV in?
Yes.
Those are the best. Like, can't even see out the front.
6'6" in bad.
Those are the best. But
That's good.
I got one that I got out of this show, and it has nothing to do with that, but I wrote it down. Dave had it. It says, act now, ask for permission later. So that has nothing to do with farming.
No, but I like it. I do. I just appreciate you, Dave, with the willingness to share. Because you could have pride wrapped up in your business to, I can't look foolish. I can't look like I don't understand what's going on because I'm supposed to be an expert. You're on a podcast, have been for 5 years.
Yep.
And the humility that it takes to share this. And I guarantee you there will be somebody out of this episode that gets value out of it. If not anything, they want a picture of the brackets that you made because everybody uses
they're
zip
nice.
ties.
I got I got spray paint. Made sure I got the John Deere matching paint, so that it's all perfect.
Yep. Oh, he had to do a little metal breaking, put some bends.
Sandblaster kit, the whole works,
yeah.
man. We got her looking.
It's like, dang, you might need to just start a little business of those.
There you go. Well, we kind of summarized the categories that we had. We want to thank all of our guests before for providing their wisdom. I can't wait to talk about our food episode and see if we can have some fun around maybe making a tour as to where we can get some of the best things our guests have ever eaten.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun. And I hope when this comes out that I'm in a much better mood. The future me, hopefully everything's fine.
Yeah.
Sure
It will be. It always works out.
Yep.
But listeners, thank you for hanging out with us. We appreciate you, your time, and all your feedback. If you've got some shit to give Dave, make sure you do that with this episode. I think he'd greatly appreciate that.
Yeah. And after harvest, I'll give you a picture
Of the monitor going fast and pulling back on the stick, showing 350 bushel of corn.
How do you do that with silage?
Yeah, we all. I almost don't want to do the silage for that reason because I just want to.
No, you need to do.
I want to get the
whatever
full year
is
process.
Best financially for you. That's what you need to do.
That's right. Well, listeners, thanks again, and until next time, have a good one.